It may not seem quite so shocking nowadays, but Bungie introducing the Arbiter as a playable character to Halo 2 was, at first, a hugely controversial decision, coming off the back of 2 explosive Master Chief missions set on Earth. With little warning, you suddenly took control of an elite instead, with a more stealthy approach to gameplay initially encouraged as well. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the Arbiter's introduction during his self-titled level, examining its good and bad in equal measure. First, the Halo 2 story so far. Following the destruction of Installation 04, an elite named Thel 'Vadam is branded with the Covenant's mark of shame for his failures. At the same time, on Cairo Station, Master Chief and friends are rewarded for their heroism, but the celebrations end abruptly as the Covenant begins their assault on Earth. Chief uses one of the Covenant's bombs to destroy several of their ships, and then travels to New Mombasa to provide support, eventually taking down a Scarab and forcing the Prophet of Regret and his fleet to flee. Master Chief, Miranda Keyes and Sergeant Johnson follow Regret using his slipspace portal, at which point the focus switches back to Thel 'Vadam. As the Arbiter gets going, it seems as if Thel 'Vadam might be in a great deal of trouble.
Why not toss him in with this lot? They could use the meat. Them? What about us? My belly aches, and his flesh is seared just the way I like it. Quiet! You two whimper like grunts fresh off the teat. He's not meant for the jails. The higher-ups have something special in mind.
There are just under 6 minutes of build-up before any gameplay, which gives me plenty of time to talk about the Arbiter himself while this tremendous cinematic plays out. As big a fan of him as I am, if I'm being totally honest, I was one of those people who wasn't overly happy with his introduction back in 2004. A lot of that had to do with Halo 2's marketing. The hype surrounding the game was absolutely insane, which was no surprise given what a huge success Halo Combat Evolved was, and much of 2's advertising was centred on the idea of its story being about Master Chief saving the Earth. Following Cairo Station, we were given 2 missions which were exactly that, before the Arbiter then made his entrance, an event which was meant to be a big surprise. Unfortunately, it was not, as news of his arrival had been leaked a good while before 2's release, which meant many fans were already foaming at the mouth long before they reached the Arbiter's big reveal. Not only did the game not really deliver on the concept of Master Chief saving the Earth, he leaves the planet after 2 levels, you were then also yanked away from him to play as an entirely new character. Understandably perhaps, it was a pretty hefty 1-2 punch for a lot of people. Of course, in retrospect, it's easy to see now that the Arbiter is the emotional core of Halo 2. You could even go so far as to label him the game's protagonist, a claim I'd find hard to dispute. Master Chief still plays an important role, don't get me wrong, but he lacks character development. By comparison, the Arbiter's storyline is one of depth. He has an arc, his tale is one of redemption. Deemed a failure at the start of the game, he's forced to reckon with the realisation that everything he's fought for has been a lie, even as he tries to redeem himself in the eyes of the Covenant, and by the end of 2, he's become a hero, freed from the shackles of their dogma. It makes for an interesting split between the 2 main characters. The Arbiter's story has far more narrative weight behind it and is generally much more rewarding than that featuring his human counterpart, but gameplay-wise, his outings I think leave a lot to be desired compared to those featuring Master Chief. Ultimately, the negative response from many his inclusion garnered wasn't necessarily a quality issue, but rather one of timing. We'd been given a brief sample of what we'd all been waiting for before it was quickly taken away. That is in no way the Arbiter's fault, but it's easy to understand why so many were so infuriated during Halo 2's early days especially. The introduction concludes with Thel 'Vadam ready to take on his new role.
What would you have your Arbiter do?
And en route to the Forerunner gas mine the mission takes place within, one of his peers also makes his feelings quite clear.
This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark.
Nothing ever will.
You are the Arbiter, the will of the prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not.
That makes 2 of us.
Sneaking into the facility alongside Spec Ops elites and grunts, some pretty powerful backup, while taking advantage of the new cloaking mechanic, helps the Arbiter's maiden run immediately stand apart from Master Chief's exploits. You could, of course, turn yourself temporarily invisible in Halo Combat Evolved 2, but that was a one-off novelty every now and then, as opposed to it being a core part of the Arbiter's kit. The amount of mileage you'll get from the mechanic depends on your relationship with Halo 2. Playing the game casually, it's an entertaining enough addition which can be used to reasonable effect every now and then, but Halo 2 is not a game designed with stealth in mind. In this first area, there are a few enemies separated from the rest upon entering, both asleep and patrolling, another on the platform above, and then 2 more patrolling, and several sleeping in the longer corridor after. Segmenting your approach and slowly moving through each part, you'd think would be a viable strategy, but because stealth is so inconsistent, you'll likely alert your enemies fairly quickly. With practice, it is possible to do a half-decent job, however during a first playthrough, arguably the most important, it is supremely difficult to proceed undetected. Bungie's concept of initially separating Master Chief and the Arbiter's playstyles is an admirable one, although it doesn't always work quite as well as it perhaps could have. Playing Halo 2 on Legendary especially, cloaking does become an invaluable tool for escaping sticky situations, but it's more a get out of jail free card than it is a chance to change the way you play for extended periods. I've already prepared myself for comments about my lack of talent from some, and you know what, they may be right, but I am going to stick to my guns and say that stealth in Halo 2 is more an afterthought than it is a genuine game changer. Reaching the end of the section, you take an elevator down to a nearby hangar.
Sentinels, the holy warriors of the sacred rings. Why have they sided with these heretics?
The encounter which follows is the Arbiter's best, which isn't saying a whole lot honestly, as it's not anything to shout about. Heretics and Sentinels both need to be dispatched, with multiple waves of enemies arriving before and after you open the hangar doors, so that a Phantom can ferry in more allies. It's a multi-tiered arena with multiple factions battling it out, but beyond that there's little you won't have seen before. The abundance of fuel rod ammunition, as well as the wealth of opportunities to take advantage of both the carbine and sentinel beam, both weapons newly introduced to the series during this mission, at least add some extra verve to what is otherwise a fairly bog-standard firefight. As much as I wish there was a lot more to say about this level, there really isn't, with it being linear to the nth degree from this point onwards. Upon leaving the hangar, you work your way through lots of corridors filled with lots of heretics and a few sentinels, and that's really all there is to it. Where Bungie often does a great job of managing the flow of more narrow and open environments, here you only get the narrow, which is symptomatic of a lot of Halo 2's level design, particularly where the Arbiter is concerned. The Banshee sequence which rounds out the level offers something different at least.
Deal with him, my brothers. I will defend the Oracle. Its truth must not be silenced.
Your task is to locate the heretic leader, while also removing weapon emplacements from the area and dogfighting with the numerous Banshees that appear every so often to stop you. It's the second Banshee sequence in the series which is explicitly designed around the vehicle, the first being in 2 betrayals towards the end of Combat Evolved, and it is great fun for a time, giving you plenty of space to get to grips with the new and improved aerial combat, while you pull off a few neat tricks in the process. The issue is that it goes on too long. Towards its beginning, it's an exhilarating affair as you fling your Banshee around while Follow, a track composed by US alt-rock band Incubus, plays in the background. But then it keeps going and going and going until the music stops and longer periods of you not doing a whole lot begin to creep in. The backdrop is absolutely stunning at least, and it's by far and away one of the most visually distinctive you come across during your time with Halo 2. I do have my misgivings about the choice of music as well. I personally don't think it fits with the rest of the soundtrack, but I'd have at least liked it to have lasted the length of the section. I would have also liked to have had it playing in the background right now, but unfortunately I can't, as the copy strike will be swift and merciless once this video has been uploaded. Looking at this section, and the Arbiter in general, in the wider context of Halo 2's campaign, it feels like much of the level has been lengthened beyond what was necessary in order to make it a singular experience. Like so many of Halo 2's multi-part missions, if it were to be cut down and combined with its latter half, in this case the Oracle, I reckon it would have been a much more engaging whole. I do really like that you can just fly directly to your final destination and end things rather rapidly if you're so inclined. You won't know where you're going your first time tackling the section, but it's great that you are given the option to skip this part entirely should you be in a hurry. Arriving at your destination, the Arbiter just sort of ends, a trick Halo 2 often likes to pull at the end of the first half of its two-parters, like during Outskirts before it, for example, or Delta Halo after. As much as I enjoy a bit of rock and roll and some aerial combat to round out a Halo level, it's something we're not treated to all that often. There's not much else to write home about during the Arbiter in gameplay terms. A moderately entertaining early battle in a hangar shows promise, but where you'd expect Bungie to ramp up the intensity as they have so often done elsewhere, you mostly end up exploring the same hallways you'd been navigating prior before taking part in a Banshee sequence which could have been cut down, with there also being little story to accompany the action, especially when compared to the Oracle which follows immediately after. That means your first foray as everyone's favourite elite isn't quite as triumphant as it perhaps could have been, even if utilising stealth to a greater extent than ever does provide some value here and there. I like the Arbiter, you like the Arbiter, we all like the Arbiter, but for some, given the quality of his first mission, it was understandably touch and go until we really got to know him. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you had a good time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts, and hopefully we'll hang out again soon.